Welcome, General Juanita. Catherine stepped down from the military aircraft with 3 beautiful kids around her. This is the first time she has returned to this land in 7 years. Now, she was not the woman who was framed by her husband and mother-in-law 7 years ago, but a powerful general. At night, Catherine walked out of her house for a night parade. As a surgeon general, one of her duty is to coordinate and supervise the medical officers. Soon, the parade started. Catherine watched as a senior officer commanded other well-lined-up and organized officers to march. They soon march away from where she was standing. She suddenly sighted a figure from afar. The way the figure was moving looks disturbing. She left the patrol field and ran very far until she got before the person she had sighted. The person turns out to be a very handsome man dressed in military uniform. He was holding his left shoulder with his right palm and could barely move. "What happened to you? Why are you here?" Catherine asked, but the man before her slumped to the tree and groaned in pain. Catherine knew he was definitely injured. She took his right palm from his left shoulder and saw that it was filled with blood. She made him sit gently and pulled away his military shirt. Even though it was a little dark, she could see how deep his wound was. He must have received a bullet. Who could have shot him inside here? Catherine thought to herself, do enemies exist inside here too? Different questions bugged Catherine's heart, but she couldn't ask the man. What is most important is to treat him. "Hold on, I'll be back with kits." She immediately sped off and soon came back with all necessary kits. She didn't bother informing other medical officers about it since they were all on patrols. At once, she immediately began to administer treatment to him, and soon she was done. She had helped him pull the bullet out and place a bandage there. "Sorry, officer. How do you feel now?" she asked the injured man. "I feel better, thank you." The man indeed felt better, and then stood upright. They both stared into each other's face for a few seconds. Catherine was moved at how extremely handsome he was. She suddenly came to her senses after their eyes had locked up for a few seconds. It was a very awkward moment, so she immediately parked her kit and turned in an attempt to leave. "Let's get married." Was this like gesture, princess? His like lying in bed asking your neighbor, "What did you say?" "Let's get married," the man responded firmly. Catherine smirked. "Get married, huh? Just like that? Do I know you? Do you know me? Do you even know my name? Is this how people get married?" He grabbed her wrist and pulled her to himself. Then he spoke powerfully. "I don't need to know your name, but I believe you can help me find what I lost." "What did you lost?" Catherine asked. She didn't bother stepping back from the awkward closeness. It could be because she found his scent to be alluring and refreshing. "My mother." Then he turned the back of her palm and asked her, "How did you get this mark?" There was a 2-head butterfly tattoo on the back of her palm. 12 years ago, Catherine's adopted parents framed her up for killing Charles. Charles was the only son of Mr. and Mrs. Wayne, a very wealthy couple in the country, with numerous companies under them. They even owned the largest and most expensive yacht in the country. Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Wayne were the real parent of Catherine, but Catherine wasn't aware. Neither was Mr. and Mrs. Wayne aware. Only her adopted parents were aware. At that time, Mr. and Mrs. Wayne started suspecting that Catherine could be their daughter and were about investigating. But Catherine's adopted parents were scared that Mr. and Mrs. Wayne will find out the truth, so they killed Charles, the only son of Mrs. Wayne, and made it look like it was Catherine that committed the murder of Charles. Whereas in the real sense, Charles was Catherine's biological younger brother. Mr. and Mrs. Wayne developed hatred for Catherine as they had believed she killed their only son. Hence, they sent her to prison. Catherine's cellmate in the prison was an old woman who had been sentenced to death and was only waiting for her day of execution. It was the old woman who drew the 2-headed butterfly tattoo on Catherine's hand few days before Catherine left the prison. Catherine had no idea if that old cellmate of hers was later executed or not. "Answer me." The man before Catherine jerked her off her thought. She swallowed and pulled back from him. "Why do you want to know?" "My mother sent me a letter that if I ever find anyone with this type of mark on the back of her palm? I should marry her, for her sake, he explained truthfully. Your mother? Catherine exclaimed. Was his mother the old woman in the cell? Where is she now? I have never seen her. All my life, I have searched everywhere for her but never found her. Do you know where she is? The man asked desperately. I do not know. I think this mark I have is from birth, Catherine lied. Lies, the man said confidently. I'll marry you until I find my mother. I am the Surgeon General that had just been deployed to your city. Do you still want to go ahead and marry me? She believed that she will be greater in rank than the soldier standing before her. Yes, the man replied with a blank expression. I have 3 kids and I'll leave here in 6 months. Do you still want to marry me? Catherine is letting the man see reasons why he should not marry her. Yes, Catherine hummed. She actually needs a partner in her 6 months of stay here in the city. This handsome soldier won't be bad to have as a husband. After all, she is even his superior, and she can always command him or make him do what she wants. I agree, Catherine said. At the military base, a chaos erupted. It wasn't the signal that an unexpected war has come. It was a signal that the god of war had returned. In the recently concluded war that happened, 90% of the soldiers returned, while 10% died on battlefield. Out of the 90% of soldiers that returned, about 80% were injured, and that was why the country sent for Easter Ocean City Medical Unit to come to their aid. But the country had been living in fear, cause the most important person in the military is nowhere to be found, a god of war. The god of war had led several battles for his countries and had never lost, though this recently concluded battle was almost lost, but luckily, the other country retreated, making him and his soldiers also retreat to their country. But the god of war was nowhere to be found, ever since other military officers' return. The government had searched for him everywhere and hadn't found him. Some believed that he was probably killed on the battlefield and that his body had been taken away by the enemies, while others, who had a strong belief in the ability of the god of war, believes that he will return home strongly. The god of war is back, a top officer shouted into a microphone at the central field of the military base. At once, every military officer in the base, those that are sleeping, eating, in the toilet, or doing whatever, immediately left what they were doing at once and began to speed towards the central field. Everyone was glad. They were happy that the god of war is back. Everyone wants to see him, the dreadful beast who single-handedly killed 500 men in battle. The one who is best in the use of gun, best in the use of swords, and best in martial arts. Once upon a time, the enemies sent 3 lions to him at the battlefield. With his power, he tore the mouths of the lions and defeated them. Who would not be scared of the god of war? He had once lifted the gate of an enemy city alone with his own hands. Such a powerful and bloodthirsty man. He only knows to kill and doesn't understand the language of mercy. He has no weaknesses and is impossible to behold. He's the god of war, the fear of many enemy countries. Catherine also heard about this chaos, but she was eating lunch with her kids at that time. She checked the military group and saw the news that the god of war had returned. She immediately told her kids, I need to attend to something urgent. You all should stay inside, okay? The kids could also hear shouts and screams of many officers from outside. Mommy, what is going on? Marie asked. The god of war was lost, but now he's back. I need to join others to go and welcome him, Catherine said. Okay, Mommy, Marie said and received a kiss from Catherine. Catherine hugged her 2 boys as well, then went to change to her military uniform quickly, then sped out. She joined the thousands of soldiers running to the base central field. In a jiffy, everyone was lined up according to their ranks. The private first class formed the row and column. They were about 150,000 in number. The corporal, staff sergeant, sergeant first class, master sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major, command sergeant major, and sergeant major all formed different rows and columns, making it easy to identify them. They all had a look of anticipation on their face as they await the presence of the god of war. The soldiers were about 800,000 in total. They were all lined up in order. There were 110 generals before the 800,000 soldiers. Out of these, 110 generals was Catherine. She was also anticipating the presence of the god of war. She had heard a lot about him and couldn't wait to set her eyes on him. Before the 110 generals were 10 Grand War Kings. These were men whose ability to fight were beyond the ordinary. And before the 10 Grand War Kings were 5 Grand War Masters. These ones were old men who thrive in wisdom and are best at war strategies. All of them, all awaits just one man. Almost 1 million people stood in attention to welcome one man. That man is the god of war. Although everyone was anticipating to see this man, their heart was also beating heavily. The atmosphere fell into a deep silence, and no one dared to make a statement, nor even say a word. Like a gush of wind, as if the cloud had suddenly turned dark, a majestic and powerful figure climbed the large podium before them all. He was tall and had the most perfect facial features, but his icy eyes were scary. He wore a short-sleeve, heavy-duty jacket and a combat boot. He had a black beret on his head. "Attention!" The 5 Grand War Masters at the forefront shouted, and the officers behind them shouted in unison, even as they raised their left legs up and marched it to the ground. "Salute!" The sound of their boots marching the floor at the same time sounded like an earthquake. But there was Catherine, whose heart was palpitating, and who almost lost the ability to breathe. She had seen the god of war, and had become extremely scared and confused. Why does her new husband look like the god of war? Can't be him, right? The god of war has just returned, so the soldier she got married to definitely cannot be the god of war. But as she looked inside his cold and icy stare, her mind argued that it was him, but she argued back that it can't be him. But why was her heart beating like it will fall off her chest? Marshal Derek Walker has returned, he said inside the microphone. Everyone watched in fear. There was a drop-dead silence, and people were even scared to breathe. He added, "I will properly address everyone in 7 days' time. Until then, keep grinding." "Yes, sir." The voice of the soldiers that answered in unison sounded like thunder. All of a sudden, Catherine felt him looking at her. Was she hallucinating? She thought to herself, but the god of war suddenly stepped down from the podium through the front step and stood before the 5 Grand War Masters. Their heart began to beat faster than normal, as they thought he has something to say to them. But he left them, and soon stood before the Grand War Kings. The Grand War Kings wanted to urinate on their body out of fear. They had no idea what he wanted to say. Fear was clearly written all over their faces. Then he left the Grand War Kings and went to stand before the 110 generals. They all shivered. It was as if they were suddenly enveloped in -300°C cold. But amidst the 110 generals, the god of war was standing before one person, and that person was Catherine. Catherine almost fell to the floor as her legs suddenly became jelly. He was really her new husband. He was. She almost cried. Her legs had become jelly, and she felt her world collapsing. How could that be? How could she get married to the god of war? The god of war smuggled a small paper into Catherine's hand and whispered, "Open it after the assembly, and do as above." She could even feel his hot breath brushing against her ears, especially in front of everyone. When everyone was dismissed, Catherine stood rooted in the spot with a heart palpitating heavily. She wanted to know the content of the letter before returning home. She breathed in as she shut her eyes. She held her breath for a few seconds and released it all at once. Open it, Catherine. It's not a big deal." Then she eventually opened the letter, and it reads,